It's 207 Champion Street, and it starts at 6 p.m. right through to 8, and you'll see us four. We are 4 of 6 speakers that will be sharing in that event, so yeah, it'll be an awesome time to share the stories.
Awesome. Can you talk about the strengths of being Pacific and what that brings to the tech space?
I think I'll start that off. Pacific people in the tech industry, I think a lot of the time when you think about Pacific people, we're often given the stereotype of maybe just athletics or just artistic, but actually if you think about navigators, in order to be navigators, we needed to be innovators first. And so when it comes to the tech industry and a lot of the things that are happening there, whether it be shared economies, whether it be design sprints, I mean, they're collectivist thinking. And if you think about how new these concepts are in the world of technology, these are just things that we've instinctively done. So I think it's around breaking down those stereotypes of what Pacific have to offer to the tech space, and then also breaking it down so Pacific people understand how innovation and technology can work together, and we can use that as a tool within the industry.
Awesome. Anyone else have comments on this?
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's a very good point in regards to being Pacific peoples and being known for certain things. And the original stories of Pacific peoples was the power of navigation. And it was taking the things that are in our surroundings, learning what they are, and then being able to put that in use for everyday life. And then when you think about where technology is going now, that's machine learning. Taking all the data points about what's happened already, putting them together, and then putting that data to use. So it's something that we've, you could say that the Pacific Island people started AI. With our navigation. So taking all those data sets and then creating stories and then passing them on and giving people the power to navigate vast amounts of space within the oceans of the Pacific. So that's a great point.
What drew you into a career in technology?
For me, jumping into technology, I was a geek. So at school, I really got into maths because maths and it was pretty basic. It had rules, and people tell me this. I don't think I am or was. I was an OCD kid. Everything had to be a certain way all the time, and maths was the same thing. So it had a start and a finish, and a formula that went through, and you couldn't really change it. But then physics came along, and then I started playing with physics and with calculus as well. And with that, I got into computers at school. And so in the 80s, there weren't very many people into computers. So I was one of the geeky kids that was playing with computers when my brothers were all outside playing rugby and being the superstars of sport. So for me, it was taking the things that I really enjoyed and then started to explore playing with computers because it followed maths. And with programming, it was creating policies which you could follow, and then you can create really cool things out of code.
So to his point before, you're actually a data analyst. Notice I'm talking to you. How did you get into tech?
I was part of a early tech immersion program, which is now currently called Kalani. And what we did back then was they took students in primary school and allowed them to explore with technology, so not so much teaching us about the coding and the mathematics behind it, but more about the exploration of technology. As I went further through high school, I realised that there was a huge disconnect between what they were teaching and what I had already learned, so I kind of lost my way and ended up in marketing. And when I was doing marketing...
Nothing wrong with marketing.
No kidding. When I was there, I was working on a Pacific campaign, and the data analyst brought us our data so we could create these campaigns, and it was about Pacific people, and there were huge disparities between the way our data was being read. And so when I challenged them, they said, actually, you can't really talk because you don't technically know how to read our data.
Right.
And I realised then that the issue was that we have all the specific data, and if Pacific people aren't reading it, then they miss out on the patterns and the things that we can see because it's inherent in our nature to understand our people.
Right.
And so I just taught myself how to code, and then I taught myself how to read data analytics through marketing. And I decided to set myself up and go towards a data analytics career. And so the thing is, because of my start in Kalani, I already understood that actually approaching technology is not as difficult as people think it is,
Yes.
because that stereotype was already broken down.
Mhm.
So that was the gateway for me to be like, actually, I'm going to be a data analyst, and there's enough tools online for me to learn, and then segued into there and did my master's in innovative technology with Francis Valentine,
Awesome.
and now doing my master's in software development with Vic. And so getting into tech is actually more about breaking down those stereotypes to realise technology is actually for all of us. The foundational is actually really easy to understand. We already understand it, and especially for women. And then just moving on towards that and just realising that you can advance in this career with or without an education.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I'm going to come back to a few points you just mentioned there. Elise, how did you get into tech?
Well, my first experience of tech was when I was, I come from frontline. I was working the reception desk at Work and Income, and I'll be the biggest moaner out. So I'll be typing away. I say, oh, this is just terrible. You know, I had so many suggestions, but no one would listen. So an opportunity came up through our PI whānau, our Pacific Island whānau that we had, and one of our speakers who was speaking tomorrow night, Jenny Ralph, she was a product manager. So she's just looking out for anyone. And so basically put my hand up and said, yeah, I'll give it a go. I was totally scared, didn't know what I was getting myself into. But then I went in as a SME, which progressed to a product owner. And then I was exposed to Scrum mastering. And I've loved that. That Agile is just my thing, you know. I'm so into Agile now that even at home, I got my Post-its on my cabinet there. But for some reason, they're all my task and not my wife. So, yeah. But being exposed to that and applying it now to new teams and stuff, it's just amazing. You know, I've met so many really onto it people, and they're rubbing off on me.
I do kind of find it funny that you work for Silverstripe, and for those of you not watching, Silverstripe does power a lot of the software that government agencies use. So you kind of flipped and went to that side to, I guess, try to create some change, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it is like now I'm at a higher level than where I was, and it's just awesome to be a part of.
Brittany?
My turn.
Your turn.
For me, I actually came from a different angle. I was more looking at some social issues within our communities, specifically around education, engagement, you know, so behavioural change and things like that, because I've got a mother who's a teacher, so, you know, I kind of grew up in the education sector, seeing it day in and day out, and noticed a lot of our kids, you know, disengaged with their learning, and school systems not adequately preparing kids for real life, and all of those kinds of conversations that you know, a lot of people are having now, which is good. But I wanted to find something to do something about it, and the reason I chose tech was because I noticed that kids were engaging with tech in their own time anyway. So I thought, well, why not go through that avenue that they're already engaging with, rather than trying to force them to do something that they don't really want to do. So yeah, I saw the social issue first, saw the pattern of behaviour around using technology, and then was like, yeah, I'm going to start a software company. And then that was it.
So Kids Coin, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Kids Coin.
What is that about?
So it's a digital platform that teaches financial literacy in schools, and it's all not just about theory, but also you know, practical applications. So the kids actually can go online, they can do their schoolwork, so we've got a range of topics on there. Numeracy, literacy, te reo Māori, Pacific languages, like the whole kind of shebang. They earn Kids Coin money, they've got a bank account, so they've got to look after their money, they can trade with their mates and stuff, and then at the end of the term they can buy real goods and services from the Kids Coin shop. So then I work with communities to kind of rally around the schools to provide whatever it is that the kids need in the classroom.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We had the founders of Sharesies in here this morning, so we're talking about that. So hopefully they can go from you and then and then transition into the real world. And you're totally preparing them for that. Okay. Did you have anyone encouraging you to get into a technology career, or if you want to answer that in the opposite way of discouraging you, feel free.
Yeah, I might jump in on that one. I definitely had people discouraging me. So prior to getting into tech, I was a tennis player, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to start a software company, and everyone was like, why? Like, don't. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. And I was like, I know, but that's all good, you know? So, yeah, definitely everyone was skeptical about transitioning from playing sport to becoming a techie. But yeah, I don't know, I just kind of went for it anyway. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I guess like probably the other point too is that's one like cool thing about our Pacific Island communities is like how everyone kind of rallies behind you, you know. So even though I was putting myself out there, like didn't know really what I was doing at the beginning, you know, all of the support systems of the community, the people came out to kind of see what they could do to contribute to make it happen with me. So you know, a big part of the success comes from the community, and I think being Pacific, that's, you know, a strength that we'll bring to the industry. Yeah.
Winona, I want to go back to a point you were talking about with your data, and something that's kind of quite apparent is like the unconscious bias that and the bias that just goes on in all of your lives, which I actually kind of find quite intense, and also it must be incredibly frustrating. Can you just talk to me a little bit about, you know, everyone's talking about AI and data, and what happens if the people who are reading the data don't actually know what they're seeing, even though it's there?
Yeah, I think on one hand, the data analysts who were reading the data do try really hard to find the patterns, but if we don't have Pacific people reading Pacific data, or Māori people reading Māori data, or even women reading data that has to do with women, then we miss out on so much of the richness that's there, and a lot of the solutions lie within that. And so I think the hardest part about going into these spaces is people giving you the opportunity to do that, to be a woman reading your woman's data, to be a Pacific person reading Pacific data, and it's gaining that trust that we're going to do the very best and give you something that maybe you missed within there. And it's not to say like I'm better than you, but it's just to say, hey, you might have missed a couple of spots there, and let me help you enrich the data so that we can come to a collective solution that's going to be the best for everyone.
It's just different experience as well.
Yeah,
right?
it definitely is.
Do you want to jump in on that? You seem like you have something you want to say about it.
I think with data, you've got your qualitative and your quantitative data as well, so you've got to really start to measure and see where the starting points are for different people, because some people do have much higher starting points than other people, and so when you are reading data, when you've only got a small collected amount of data, and you'll find that there are groups of people who don't give data very freely, and so there is a bias because you go, they're always like that, but it's only a small group of people and a small amount of data.
Right.
And so it's going to be very interesting to see how we go forward with the way that we use data, especially within social and government spaces, when they go, well, we've made this decision based on the data that we've got. And then someone's going to actually ask the question, are you reading it right?
Yeah.
Do you have the right data?
Yeah, and are you asking the right question to the data, you know, because that's where it kind of starts from, is what's the purpose? And if you don't have a diverse perspective, you know, involved at that point of the conversation, then you're on a tangent already.
Yeah, and you're going to go in the wrong direction for a fix.
Yeah.
So you'll have in a room, and it could be, let's say, Deloitte will have the people who are in a room going, I think we can do this with this data, but if they don't have that diversion of thinking, they are going to go in the wrong direction.
It's like ending up in Tahiti instead of Aotearoa.
Yeah, ending up in America and going, we found India. They're Indians.
Okay, so a few questions, and I think we've got like 5 minutes left. So what's been your biggest challenge, and maybe a challenge from each of you in the tech industry, and how did you overcome it?
I think the tech industry, we've mentioned it before, it's actually not that hard to get into. There is a layer that you need to break through with the perceptions, and it's that perceptions of Pacific people aren't really mathematical, and it's the breaking through that. And one of the rich things that we have within Māori and Pacific is that we are really good communicators, and we're really good gatherers of relationships. And so IT is one of those industries where you need the creators, the makers, the administrators, and the sellers. Because you can have a great product, but if you don't have someone talking the good story, and Pacifica people are really good at telling stories.
Case in point.
Yeah. and it's one of those things where I realised, actually, you don't need to be a maths genius to be in IT. You can be a great storyteller.
It's also like anyone can be good at anything if they try.
Absolutely.
Your turn?
My turn.
Your turn.
I think being a woman in tech would be one of my biggest challenges. You walk into a room and people automatically are surprised that you're a female who's going to be doing this technical job. And then you're often having to justify or prove yourself, and I think it becomes frustrating because you're here to do a job and instead you're having to go over and over and over about things that you would rather just not talk about because you want to get the job done.
Yep.
So being a woman in an area where there's hardly any women is really frustrating. I often get mistaken for people's partners at events. Or people send me to a different area because they don't think that I'm technically sound, or they challenge, and it's not an outright challenge. It will be just slowly challenging the process, challenging your work, which is fine, but it becomes tiring having to constantly justify yourself. So yeah, being a woman and a woman of colour in tech would be my one.
Lucy?
I think when I first meet people, they think I'm a lady. That's my biggest challenge, really. Because they actually think it's Elise, not Elise here, so... Yeah, next.
So two things. Well, they know I'm a lady usually. So yeah, winning. Being a non-techie going into tech and bringing a totally non-tech perspective and trying to meet in the middle between social outcomes and technical outcomes. And in the second part, probably the biggest challenge for me is just like not having enough representation of Pacific Island voice and Māori voice at high levels, you know, given that tech is going to impact the future of work, given the roles that our communities tend to fill. Being around the situation and not having our voice kind of part of that is really difficult on a personal level, you know, because I know for a fact that we can bring such a valuable and unique perspective to the solutions that are being created, that, you know, society and governments and communities around the world are kind of looking for. Yep. So that's hard because I just want to take the whole lot with me, you know. So, yeah.
I think mine was ageism and everyone thinks I'm the PA or the administrator.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I run the organisation. They're like, no, you don't. I'm like, okay, great, awesome. Super interesting. I think I want to kind of go back to culture and values and community, because I think that's really important. And I guess the last thing I just want to cover in those sort of 2 minutes we have left is what can New Zealand learn, or what can the New Zealand tech sector or community learn from your culture, and how can you actually make them stronger, which in turn will hopefully, you know, provide you guys a platform to do more and to amplify your messages and your mission.
Wow, I didn't see that question passed on to us.
I made it up, but you qualified to answer.
I would say one part that I'm most proud of being Pacific Island is our level of empathy that we're taught from a really young age, you know, like coming in from a like user experience kind of perspective and how people are interacting and what that looks like in terms of lifestyles moving forward. I feel like we have a really unique perspective in that way because of how our communities have operated for so long over such a big period of time. So for me, that's what I'm most proud of. Yeah.
I think for myself and in my current role, it's that servant, being a servant. You know, we're taught right from a young age that, you know, we serve our church, we serve our family, we serve our community. And I guess applying that in the tech industry or in my role is that I'm being, I guess a Scrum Master is seen as a servant leader. So we do our best to provide the team with what they need in order to do their best job they can. So removing impediments, being the the screen or blocking out all the noise from the team so they can focus and do what they need to do.
I think a boring answer to go along with these cool ones. I think Pacific people are really good at finding solutions with minimal resources. They're really good at looking at ways that we can harness the earth and natural resources, and then mobilisation. I think no one mobilises the way Pacific mobilise, and so if you call events and you get Pacific people behind it who are leaders, you're going to have a huge turnout. And especially when it comes to tech events, which aren't always the most popular sometimes, you could learn a lot about how do we mobilise people and empower people to get involved in whatever the subject is.
Yeah, and ring fencing that, it's that sense of community that they bring, and you'll see it in many companies. You'll have people saying, I don't know why they're not getting in behind this. And yet we are the ones that are able to get more people involved because we have an energy which is very different. And it's that energy that we can bring into organisations and help people find the extra push to get things done as a group towards a success. And then using that servant mentality, it's the IT is supposed to serve what questions we have to be able to make things better. And so with that thought, getting that community behind it and getting that energy to serve, I think we've got a really good gift to every organisation.
Awesome. That's all we have time for. For those of you at home, these guys just have so much camaraderie, and the community here when I'm just sitting here kind of looking at how you all interact is amazing. I think you're amazing role models for any community and for New Zealand, so thank you so much. And for those of you watching at home, that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching Techweek TV, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.